y'all? Been getting a lot of requests to do a build video of my Razor Crazy Cart. Wasn't too bad to do, but a lot of people just want some information on like how I did it and all that stuff, so that's what I plan on going through today. Starting out with the cart, this is a standard Crazy Cart. I bought it off Facebook Marketplace for about $75. I actually got a really good deal. I got 2 of these for $75. And so I kind of used the other one as a donor cart to get parts and whatnot. But yeah, so first thing I did for this thing, which I highly recommend, is, and I'm going to have links for everything on this cart in the description below. But first thing I did was get a replacement headset bearing. That wasn't too difficult to install. Essentially, you're gonna get in with an Allen key here and undo this, and there's on the stem there's a piece of metal that actually expands as you tighten it. So when you decrease it, it loosens, so you can pull the steering wheel out along with the actual like steering rod that tightens. And there's 2 spots that you put the headset bearing in there. So you're gonna want to get in there and pop the old ones out and then slide the new one in, and same for this one. And that helps significantly with speed wobbles. So before I did that, everything you had to like grip on the wheel like super tight, and it was a huge pain in the ass. But next thing I got was this 48-volt battery. I actually am going to work on getting another one from a company called Amorg. Amorg makes these rectangle-shaped batteries that will actually fit right under the steering column area, and they're way better quality. This is a comb battery that I got off eBay for about $200-ish. It's okay for the time being. The problem with Amorg is that it does take a long time to get built and shipped out, since it's coming over from China, and I need something quick just something to ride the kit that I got. So got the battery for it, and made a custom housing for it out of like aluminum sheet metal. It doesn't look the prettiest, to be honest, but it protects the battery well enough. I had to basically bend it into the constraints of the battery and slide it in there, and it got a little messed up here in the end, but I had to do some cutting, which is why I have duct tape here to kind of protect the edging out. I could have just painted over that as well, but I don't really care too much about how it looks, in all honesty. But I had to recreate a battery hold down here, so what I did is I took a piece of metal and I bent it to go over here, and I drilled a hole to screw in here, and then I drilled another hole where I have a hook with a, let's see if I can get under here. Yeah, here it is, with a nut on some threads to keep it tightened and to hold it down. So that worked a ton, and keeps the battery in there in place. Moving on to the motor here. This is actually a motor from the homie Jeremy at Charged Up 3D. So this is his budget brushless kit for the standard Crazy Cart. It comes with the motor, which I believe is a 3,000 watt motor. I think right now it's tuned about 1,500 watts. But it comes with the motor and a mounting bracket that is custom machined by him. And then it comes with all the phase wires, and it also comes with the controller, which is a Flipsky 75-100 controller. Really easy to set up, mounts right up there into the old area where the old controller mounts. And the hardest part about this was getting it to clear the stopper right here. What I ended up doing for that, and as you see, there's a specific way to route the wires as well. So what I did is I put the wires through here and I taped them about right here. And what you do is you want to extend it all the way around until it hits the stopper, and you want to get those cables loose right here, and then you want to have it in a way that when you undo it they won't get all tangled, right? So I turned it all the way around and zip tied the cables right at the bottom of the steering, the headset bearing, and then as I undid it, I basically found where they were going to be sitting at, and I drilled 2 holes in the fork, and I zip tied it down so the wires would be held down, and I also put some tape over it as a precautionary. I was a little worried about it rubbing over time and wearing the wire down, so I put some duct tape over it to be safe. You don't have to do it. As you can see, it's not even like hitting it, but I just wanted to be extra safe on that regard. So yeah, put some duct tape down over there and just zip tie it here, and then you run the cables in the old channels from before. This little channel right here is where you're gonna run the rest of them down. Funnel them through there, and then I zip tied it here as well, and then I had them come down here where they then go into the controller. Other than that, everything else is pretty plug and play. You plug the throttle in, you'll plug the switch in, and they only have like 1 spot to go in the controller, so really straightforward. One thing I do want to go over, I did have some struggles with the chain and sprockets, and I'll explain sort of what happened with that. I made very many mistakes on this. This is my first build, and I kind of rushed it at first, so I made plenty of mistakes. I'm gonna go over those so that hopefully nobody else makes those same mistakes. But for starters, I put the front sprocket on wrong. So as you can see, the teeth are right there and it goes out, but I actually had it backwards so that that part of the motor was hitting against here because the teeth were so far to the right and the chain wouldn't line up right, and I was like very confused. That was not right, so I fucked up on that one. I ended up fixing it, and all was seemingly well, but with the stock tensioner on the Crazy Cart, it made the chain like super tight. Like right now, this is about the slack that I got on it, which is pretty good, but before it was like barely movable. And so what happened was it was generating a lot of heat. It was pulling on the shaft and it was making the motor overheat. Now, Jeremy does a really good job at programming the controller for you, but one of the things you might need to adjust if you're having overheating issues, especially being in Georgia in the summertime where it's brutally hot, you might need to turn the phase amps down a little bit. By default they're at 100, but I normally keep mine around 75. You do lose less torque, but you won't have to worry so much about overheating, at least if you're experiencing any issues with overheating. But what happened was it was getting so hot and it was such a weird tension that it was grinding down the teeth on the sprocket. And I actually failed to realize this originally. Again, I rushed this build. Please adhere to my mistakes here, but I did not put any chain lube on the chain, which is not great, and it did generate even more heat, and it wasn't as smooth as it should have been, you know, grease up and whatnot. So that also contributed to these teeth getting worn down, but they got worn down to the bare, so there was nothing left, and then everything was fucked, and it left me stranded. So definitely use chain lube. Like, do not forget that. That is a big one. It sounds so simple. How could I forget that? But I did. I didn't even think about it. So yeah, definitely adhere to that. But also, I would definitely recommend using red Loctite on these set screws. I did have some fall out on the first few goes. Red Loctite, you're gonna need heat to get out, but it's definitely worth it. that way they're never gonna come out. But yeah, and then I also screwed up a little bit with the chain tensioner because it was so tight at first. I was trying to figure out how to do that, so I actually took the old one off, and then when the chain stretched, it actually became a little loose, and there was a whole bunch of problems. So the stock tensioner here has a metal bar that comes all the way down to here, and is what prevents the spring tension from going further back. Since my chain was so tight, I thought if I got a angle grinder and cut a little bit of that metal off for it to just go back a little more, then it would be perfect. Well, that didn't work as well as I thought, and it ended up being way too fucking loose. So what I did to just fix this is I just got a zip tie to hold it, to pull it up more. It actually does a pretty good job. It's super ghetto rigged, but honestly, it works for the mistake I made. But definitely don't do what I did, please. I'm like the test subject here, the guinea pig, on what not to do with some of these builds. So just another fair warning on that. But that is one thing that wasn't the end of the world. I mean, honestly, I could have deleted this and just shortened the chain to fit a better and not as loose, like maybe removed a link or two, but and I can still do that actually. That's the workaround, is to just delete the tensioner and remove part of the chain, link of the chain, to make it tighter. And I might end up doing that eventually, but for now this works, and you know, it is what it is. But yeah, another thing I did here, I did replace the plastic, or rather, this actually screws on top of the original plastic on the pedal, and is metal with grip tape right here. So just a cool little feature to do. And I did put a new rubber handle on the drift bar, and I of course painted the cart as well, and the steering wheel. And I had to kind of finagle the switch in here. It was pretty tight normally, but I had to get in there and kind of like shave out a little more of the metal to get it to fit right from the stock charging port, is what that actually went into. But did that, and then here is the other mod that I definitely recommend. I cannot say enough how much I recommend this. If you're ever looked into these things, you'll know that a lot of people recommend getting upgraded casters, but I'm going to tell you the exact reason of why you should do that, because I did not think, you know, oh, you know, I'm going to get it eventually, but I can like survive just the crappy back wheels. No, not going to work. Those little scooter wheels, they generate a lot of heat. They're not made for going fast like this kit can go. And by the way, this does get me up to over 40 miles an hour. I have tested that out with a GPS app, and I have hit well over 40 miles an hour on this thing, so it definitely flies. And those stock wheels are not made for high speed. So what happened was, it was generating so much heat from the wheel that it was expanding from the bearing part of the wheel, is expanding to the actual wheel and melting the surrounding plastic of the wheel and just crumbling apart. So I'd be riding around, and all of a sudden the wheel would just be shredded and would be so hot that it was like a melted ball in the middle. And I tried to get it home. I had like a mile or two to get home, and it was causing overheating issues because it's obviously got a lot more resistance on the back, and it was causing some overheating issues. So what I ended up doing, if you don't want to spend if you don't want to spend the $300 or so on the taxi garage casters, which by the way I think is absolutely outrageous, I definitely recommend a solution by using Apollo casters. So Apollo casters are what I've got on here right now, and let me see. Let's get the card up. Yeah, the Apollo casters, they screw in right here to the stock frame, or the stock bar, and what it is on this part there is a little nub, and that nub has to be able to fit in right here into the screw. Or rather, this screw that screws into the drift bar has a nub that has to fit into the hole at the top of the caster. And that little nub on here is, by default, way too big. So it will not fit in the hole of the caster. So what you have to do is you have to grind that down until it'll fit in there. And I'm gonna try my best to explain how I did that. But I essentially took a bolt that fit the same thread as this thread right here, and I cut the end of the head of the bolt off, and then I screwed the end of that bolt into this bolt. Okay, so now I've got the bolt that I cut off screwed into this bolt, so it's holding it in the bolt, and then the little nub is at the end that you need to shave down. And then I attached it to a drill so that that thing could spin, and I grabbed a filer and I basically held the filer over it as it spun. I actually took some tape and just taped the lever of the drill so it would just keep spinning, and then I held my feet here and I held it under there so it would grind the metal away from the nub to eventually be able to fit into the caster itself. So you have to do a little bit of work, but it is definitely worth it, 100%. So once you get that in there, it's a matter of just getting some spacers in here to fit some longboard wheels, and I do use the orangutan wheels, 74 millimeter, I believe. These are solid wheels. I mean, I've ridden hours and hours and hours on these, and they hold up very, very, very well. It's definitely worth the investment for sure. So, but yeah, that's pretty much the overall build. Oh, and I did add a kit for LEDs. Just gone on Amazon, got a battery powered one, and put them along and underneath it, and then put the battery pack itself right there, and now I got some cool underglow at night. As far as brakes go, one thing I do have going on it is I did turn on regen in the app, and I have the amps for regen set at minus 40, and that seems to do pretty well. I haven't done a huge stress test on it yet, because I'm waiting to see how much heat it's going to generate, and I want to do a proper test. But for the time being, riding around for a bit, it didn't really show too many issues, and it actually stopped fairly well on the regen. So if anyone ends up going with this kit, that is one thing I'd recommend. They do have options to mount like a brake disc to this somehow, and then add like a brake lever here. I would be cautious with that because I don't think these little wheel hubs are designed to handle that sort of braking power or force from the brake. And it, I've heard, and this might, I don't know how true or how plausible it actually is, but I've heard that that's actually caused this to crack a little bit. So I'd definitely be cautious of that. But other than that, that's pretty much the build overall. I mean, it rips. And yeah, I'm gonna include some footage here, probably at the end of the video, to kind of showcase me doing a little bit of riding with this. But yeah, everything that I bought is gonna be in the comments below, or in the description, sorry. It's gonna be in the description below, all the part lists, and yeah, shout out Jeremy at TechTrek-Thrills. He was incredibly helpful with some of the troubleshooting tips I needed, especially for the chain. And he actually sent me a replacement chain that was a little shorter to help, he actually sent me a longer chain since the original was so tight. He sent me one that was a little bit longer and an additional 13 tooth sprocket to go on here. So yeah, he was incredibly helpful during this whole process, and you know, if anyone ever buys from him, it's definitely worth your money. It's a great price. They're right at around $400, I believe, and he gets them shipped out within a few weeks, and he's incredibly helpful with any questions you have on it, and any troubleshooting you need. So highly recommend his kit at TechTrek-Thrills, and just want to say a thanks to him for all the assistance he had with helping me with this. But yeah, so let me know if you guys have any questions for me in the comments below, or any feedback, and I will try my best to answer them. So thanks.